Hello and welcome again to As We May Think. I wanted to talk today about Node and HTTPS because a server isn't really a server these days unless it provides encryption for you. You can't really take people's money or store their data safely, have API calls if you don't have some kind of security there. And HTTPS is how you do that. But all the examples that I've provided thus far were very, very simple Node examples that did not include HTTPS support. What I want to show you today is how you could actually get that up in probably no more than about 15 minutes of actual work. There is a little bit of a wait time in there if you don't already have your domain set up and wired to a server. But other than that, literally you could do the whole thing in 15 minutes. And I'm going to show you how. So it starts off with Let's Encrypt because Let's Encrypt is a project from the EFF, and the EFF really wants you to have certificates because they believe that it increases the overall security of the web. Too many websites didn't have a certificate because it cost a lot of money, $800 or more in some cases, depending on what kind of certificate you were getting. I'm sure prices have come down quite a bit since, but it's really tough to beat free when you're doing one of these side projects that you might be contemplating doing right now. While we're watching in the background, me actually set up a domain name using Freenom just for the sake of having something that I can use for this demonstration. I'm actually going to create one called node.js, and they end up having a kind of a weird collection of extensions. They don't have .com and stuff like that they're going to give you for free. They have things like TK and ML and GA, whatever. Doesn't really matter. This was a throwaway anyway. But while we're watching me do this and create the domain, let me talk briefly about certbot. Certbot is a piece of software that came from the Let's Encrypt project. It's something that you put onto a server, and it helps you get that free certificate and then turn around and use it with your software. So, and this is crucial as well, it helps automatically renew it because Let's Encrypt certificates, you only get them for 90 days, and then they need to be renewed. Well, you don't want to have to remember to keep doing that manually, so they provide not only a piece of software to install it in the first place and help you get it, they also help you renew that certificate on a regular basis using a cron job. So in the background here, you can see that I managed to get as far in the Freenom process as getting the domain and being ready to start using the DNS to wire it up. But I need an actual server to do so because I have to have an IP address for that server. So I came over to DigitalOcean. There's a link to DigitalOcean in the README for this. Be aware, full disclosure, I will get something if you sign up for DigitalOcean and stay with them for a year. I get a credit on my account to help pay for my bills. Once this process completes right here, you're going to see me get the IP address from this new server, and then I'll turn around and plug that in over at Freenom so that I can connect that new domain to that server. And there we go. So this is the point at which you might actually have to wait for a little while. If you haven't already done this process previously at some point, getting a domain and then wiring it to a server, then there's a certain amount of time that it takes before the domain is out there on DNS servers. So if you come to a given machine and you type in your new domain name, they won't know where it is. They'll just sit there kind of like, hey, I don't know where that is. Whereas 15-20 minutes later, all of a sudden you'll find it works just fine. So if that happens to you, don't be freaked out by it. Just wait a little while, go make yourself a cup of tea, have some lunch, whatever, and then come back and your server will be wired up such that you can then turn around and ping it to confirm that it is working. And that's what you're going to see next here, is you're going to see me actually ping the servers after a brief period to make sure that they are in fact working. why do we have to have a server up and have it be able to ping the domain name for this to work? That's because Let's Encrypt and Certbot want to see that you actually have a server on the internet, and they want to see that you control that server and that the domain that you said you're trying to get a certificate for is actually one that belongs to that machine. They're trying to connect all the bits to put a little bit of extra security on there. So here you've seen me actually log into my new server, and then you're going to see me perform a whole series of steps that I got from the Certbot instructions page. You will flip over to the Certbot homepage and the instructions page just real quick while some of this is happening in the background, because you're just going to perform the first 4 steps or so straight out of their instructions. In this case, I went to their instructions page. I told it that my server was none of the above, because obviously I'm using a Node server. It didn't match with any of their examples. And then I said that the operating system that I was using, the system as they put it, is Ubuntu 18.04 long-term support, LTS. That's what I use for my server. And then they turn around and they give me a series of steps to perform to actually install Certbot onto the machine. If we flip back, that's what you see me doing here in the background, is installing the steps. I will probably speed this up just a little bit because you don't really care that much about all of the various steps. I just probably should tell you that they did take no more than a few minutes to complete before we actually get to Certbot, which is the part that you actually care about most. And here it is going and getting a certificate. I provided both of the 2 names of the 2 domains, both the version with and without www on them. I get the certificate, and then it's time to install our Node software. Here I'm adding my private key to the server so that I can just do a get pull to pull all my code. You could get the same code onto the server using FTP or paste it on there. However you want to do it. You could do the same thing I did, which is get a key onto there and then just clone the code down onto it. At some point, I need to go through and try to create a very simple installation set of instructions for how to get your code deployed onto servers. I just haven't chosen to do that one yet because I really want it to be super easy, and I haven't figured out the best way to make that super easy yet. Anyway, here I am cloning the code onto there. You'll also see me install node.js and npm on here, as well as a bit of software called Forever. You've heard me talk about that before. Basically, Forever just starts up a given node server, and then should that server crash for any reason, it automatically restarts the server. That gives you a certain level of security that if you ran out of memory or something else bad happened, your server would come back up automatically without your having to log into the machine to do so. I'll speed this bit up quite a bit because we really aren't needing to see all the details. But ultimately, I do an npm install, and to get all the packages that I need, I only used a couple of packages. They're the same ones you've seen me use previously in my explanations of Node. I used Morgan for logging, and I used Express. That's it. Before starting the server up, I want to point out that the domain name for my server is actually in the code. You'll need to change that out for your own server name. That's necessary because it has to go to the right path to get the Let's Encrypt certificates in order to be able to find those and use them with the server. If you don't have the right domain name in there, it won't know where the directory is. It won't be able to find those certificates and be able to start the server up. Now with the server running, we can come over here, we can actually try it out, and you'll notice that in this example, not only does it work, it automatically moves you from the HTTP version to the HTTPS version. That's something we'll cover momentarily when we go through the changes to the code that I made specifically for the HTTPS. And then we will be done. Oh, I should point out that both the www and non-www versions are working, and I did go ahead and click on the lock icon in the server to show you that the connection is secure. The certificate is good, and it's good for a while, and everybody is super happy with it. Yay. That's what you want. Okay, let's look at the source code real quick, and you'll see what I've changed here. If you've seen some of my past examples, like when I was working with Jonathan, or when I talked about node servers, in particular, if you look through there was a node and express video that I did a while back. That is basically the same code that you're seeing here with just a couple of minor variations. And the variations are basically that I'm pulling in the file system library, the HTTPS library, and the path library. Actually, I think I pulled path even before. But I'm pulling in these two new libraries from Node. They come with Node. You saw me specify what the domain was that I'm interested in. All this is familiar from before. Be sure to watch the Node and Express video if you want to see an explanation of what all this code does. Here's where we hit our first actual change. This is a small bit of middleware that says if the incoming request is secure, don't do anything. Just go on to the next step. If it's not, automatically redirect the user to the secure version of the same thing that they asked for. And then this is still the same as before, and this is still the same as before. This is where your actual real server would go, and this is the plain server. Usually I'm starting this up on port 3000, but port 80 is the normal HTTP endpoint for things. So here's where we see, other than this redirect up here, this is where we see our only other change. This goes and pulls all of the various files from the where Let's Encrypt dropped the various files we need, the priv key, the full chain, and the chain. These files get loaded up. They get attached to these different values on this object, and then we turn around and use them with HTTPS create server to provide all the credentials. That's it. You do this, and you perform that fairly simple set of steps, and I swear to you, you can have encryption on your node server in less than 15 minutes. So, I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you're ready to start having secure communications. Thank you so much for listening again to As We May Think. I appreciate your viewership every single time, and if you enjoyed it, please click like and subscribe, as well as the notify bell that you see on your screen. That'll let you know whenever a new episode drops, which is normally Tuesdays and Thursdays. Again, thank you so much. Bye-bye.